Marketer of the Day, Episode 604, The Proven Path to Get Self-Published Using Free Plus Shipping Offers, Overcome Blank Page Syndrome, Solve a Real Problem, and Succeed both on and off Amazon with Chandler Bolt.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Marketer of the Day podcast, and I hope that you are super duper well rested. I hope that you maybe have been asleep for the past 12 days and woke up and drank about 3 gallons of coffee or maybe more, because that is how energized, excited, and enthused you're about to be, because we have a famous person in the house. He's Mr. Chandler Bolt, and Chandler is the host of the Self-Publishing School podcast, and he's the author of 6 best-selling books, including his most recent one, which is called Published, and we're going to hear all about that one. And Chandler is the founder and CEO of Self-Publishing School, which is the #1 online resource for writing your first book. And through his books, his podcast, his training videos, and Self-Publishing School, Chandler has helped thousands of people on their journey to writing their first book. So if you're one of those people, and I think you are, one of those marketers who say, I've got a good message, I've got something that I want more attention on. Well, if a book felt out of your grasp before, then you are about to have your mind changed and your mind blown. So Chandler, glad to be talking to you.
Robert, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Glad to have you. And I feel like I recognize your face. I don't know if it's like from a lot of Facebook ads, but I feel like I just see you all over the place. So what's the deal with that?
Yeah, honestly, it probably is a lot of Facebook ads or YouTube ads or Instagram ads, or really, honestly, if you go to selfpublishingschool.com at any point, I'll pretty much follow you down around the internet into eternity. So that might be it.
Okay, great. And I mean, there's a great lesson in there right off the bat. And it seems like, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but it seems like a lot of authors out there, they put all this energy into, writing the book and making it perfect. And it seems like a lot of people out there have an idea for a book or have a book half done. And it's like they're just stuck in the writing phase. And then even if they do get the book published, it's like they're so exhausted from all that work that just getting the book published, they think they're done. And it seems like, just from what I'm seeing out there, is a lot of people are lacking that marketing component, that, hopping on all the podcasts like you're doing right now of promoting the stuff that they already have. So, I mean, do you see something similar to that too?
Oh, 100%. It's so important. We usually find that there's 2 groups of people. There's one group that loves the writing and hates the marketing, and the other group hates the writing and loves the marketing. Now, if this is a podcast full of folks that like marketing, maybe they're the ones who are like, hey, it's going to be hard to write the book and that's going to be painful, but I can't wait to get to the marketing. But kind of either way, it's a 2-part equation, right? You have to do both. And so many people, especially your true writers, they don't realize that the old adage, if you build it, they will come. It just doesn't work. So you've got to not only write a good book, but write a book that solves a real problem. And you got to think about marketing even before you start the writing part. So I think that's what a lot of people, A, they either don't spend enough time on marketing, or they don't realize, B, that this is something that starts even before you get into the writing.
I love it. Yeah. And that's one of those lessons where even like I forget it every now and then, that you kind of have to reverse engineer and give the people what they want. And I'm sure that there's like an idea for a book where I think, okay, here's what I want to write about, and here's where I would have fun talking about these subjects. But we have to maybe do some of that market research and see what books are already out there and see what people already want. That way we can kind of take the shortcut, right? We can see what they want and give it to them, instead of trying to force this weird book that we thought was cool down their throats.
Oh, 100%. Yeah.
Cool. So, I mean, yeah. So now I'm curious about what kind of books that you have out there. Like, you have this published books and these other ones before that. So, I mean, what sort of stuff do you like to write on? Is it all over the place, or is there like a commonality to some of these?
Yeah. So there's 3 books that are on productivity or more general self-help. And then I've written 3 books on the writing, marketing, and publishing process. So, I've written a book called The Productive Person on productivity hacks for entrepreneurs. There's one called Breaking Out of a Broken System. It's more kind of a self-help book. But then on the flip side is probably my favorite one, and the one I'm most proud of, and the one I would recommend folks get, especially if you're curious about writing and publishing a book, is it's called Published: The Proven Path from Blank Page to Published Author. And honestly, this is what we were talking about a second ago, Robert. If you go to our site at any point, so selfpublishingschool.com, you'll probably see in those ads, and I think there's some marketing lessons here. You'll see a lot of creative ways for me to say, hey, get my book for free. Right. And so that's actually a big component. And we use a free plus shipping funnel. It's a huge driver of customers for us at Self Publishing School. And so, you'll see me hanging from a tree in one of them. And maybe you've seen this one, Robert, where I'm hanging from a tree and I've got the book and I say, hey, you're leaving me hanging. Don't leave me hanging. You visited my site. You haven't got my book yet. Click here to get a copy of the book. Right. Or there's other just creative ways and ads and stuff that we use. But a lot of those lead to published, which I think is a really great book, but it's also an introduction. It's kind of like a hi, nice to meet you. And I teach a lot of really great stuff, but then obviously a lot of folks go on to end up doing business with us. So I'm sure that's probably what most of folks are interested who listen to your podcast, Robert, is, okay, how do I use a book to actually drive leads and customers for my business or for business of a client or stuff like that? And that's kind of exactly how we do it.
Awesome. Yeah. I mean, you have to drive it to your business. Otherwise, what's the point? I mean, how many copies do you need to sell at 99 cents for it to be anything substantial? And if you're just relying on, Amazon's ranking on those Amazon's free days, that sounds like a nice boost, a nice jumpstart. But then it's like, if you're not building a list, if you're not sending people to your own website, if you're not, running all these fun, crazy ads that you're running, if you're not doing any of these cool free plus shipping offers, I mean, if you're not doing some of these things, then it's like you're only getting the little trickle that Amazon gives you, right? It almost seems like Amazon gives you this little bit of traffic and these little bit of buyers for your book, but it's like they expect you to take it and run with it, right? To do more with it.
Yeah, 100%. And sure. So obviously it's important that you do well on Amazon, and that's a lot of what we talk about. I mean, over 70% of all books sold are sold on Amazon, but you're right. I mean, you really got to think about, how do I succeed on Amazon and off Amazon? How do I drive sales of my book and make royalties, which is cool. That's kind of like the mailbox money, right? So I always say that Amazon is the search engine of buyers. Google is a search engine of browsers. So while everyone's trying to focus on Google and really ranking there's this whole other area, which is Amazon, which has 310 million customers, more than that actually now. But it's kind of so much more of a blue ocean. So yes, you can set yourself up for success, and yes, you can publish a book and 3 years from now still get mailbox money or a royalty check every single month. But it's important that you go beyond that. And I think that's kind of what you were saying, Robert. And what I totally agree with is, you kind of look at it as, I can use Amazon as a driver for leads, just like you might use, the iTunes store or the podcast ecosystem as a driver for your podcast. But there's also other distribution channels. And then in addition to those distribution channels, there's other ways that people can do business with you and end up paying you money beyond just the podcast itself.
I love it. Yeah. So it's like there's all these platforms available to us, and we can make use of them, but we shouldn't live there, right? Like we can post things and get Google to send us traffic, iTunes to send us traffic, Amazon to send us traffic, but then now that becomes our traffic, that becomes our customers, and then we can send them to offers and have them use them as subscribers on our list, to send them to different web pages and engage them and get them on Facebook live streams and webinars and all these other things, and have a lot of fun with them. So this all sounds like a great, having a book is a great thing to have, because we can send people to our websites and grow our business. And so I noticed that your published book is the subtitle is The Proven Path from Blank Page to Published Author. So if someone out there in podcast land is listening and they say, having a book as this sort of tool sounds really great, but I'm stuck at that blank page. How do I make something of myself? How do I get to published author status?
Yeah. So the good news is that it's easier than you think, and it's easier than most people make it out to be. So there's kind of been a lot of myths perpetuated in the whole book publishing world over decades, that you need an agent, you need a traditional publisher, and it's going to take years to write this thing, and so you're going to need to just basically clear your schedule for 2 years to get this thing done. And the good news is that couldn't be further from the truth. There's been a lot of really cool changes, like I mentioned earlier, which is that over 70% of all books sold are sold on Amazon. Guess what? You don't need a publisher to publish on Amazon, right? So there's been some cool changes. But to answer your question, how do you overcome that kind of like that blank page syndrome and really get the thing going? So I'm a C-level English student and a college dropout. So I always tell people, if I can write a book, you can too. I wasn't very good in English or writing, but the good news is that there's a simple process. So we teach like kind of this mind map outline write process, which is what we call it, which we've got like some training on our blog and stuff like that goes into deeper depth. But like the 60-second overviews, you take a blank sheet of paper, you do a brain dump or a mind map, everything that you can think of on that topic. Okay, then you start to group those ideas into groups or sections. So it's going to form 4 to 7 sections that form the outline of your book. You drill down into those sections, so maybe 3 or so chapters per section. That gives you a chapter by chapter outline for your book. This is very simple. And then step 3, you write the book based on that outline. And the way that you do that is you actually repeat this exact same process chapter by chapter. So let's say, for example, chapter 1, I'm going to spend 10 minutes mind mapping everything I can think of on that chapter, 10 minutes turning that mind map into an outline. And then I'm going to spend 45 to 60 minutes writing the chapter. Or, and this is kind of cool, especially for folks like you, Robert, who, some people write better than they speak. Others speak better than they write. So a lot of podcasters, especially, it's, hey, I'm used to speaking. That is a more, that's a better medium or mode for me. So this is kind of where it gets to choose your own adventure. So you can actually speak the book. So you can spend 10 minutes mind mapping the chapter, 10 minutes turning that mind map into an outline, and then 10 minutes speaking the chapter. You get it transcribed, and then you can work with an editor to kind of polish that off. So that's kind of, in a nutshell, the 3-step process that we teach to help people go from blank page to at least rough draft finished, which the most important thing if you're trying to write a book is to get your rough draft finished. Because until you get your rough draft finished, at least I've found for most of our students in self-publishing school, until they reach that checkpoint, they don't believe that they can actually do it. And once they reach that checkpoint, their success or their probability of success just dramatically goes up, because it's kind of like this light bulb moment for folks when they finish the rough draft, that they start to believe this is something that I can actually do, and this is something that I'm going to take to the finish line.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, that once that rough draft is done, they can finally see the light at the end of the tunnel. It's kind of like if they were piecing together a car, and the car is in all kinds of pieces, and there's like the engine and the seats and the wheels and the steering wheel, and it's all just a big mess. That's one thing, but maybe they put the car together and maybe there's no roof or no doors, but at least it drives, and it's like, okay, well, now I'm a lot closer to the end than I was before. And if I had to put out the book now, I could. And it's like, as opposed to it just being this huge mess of things that's not done. So that's a really good insight right there in and of itself, that to get to that rough draft as fast as possible and not get caught in that habit of writing a little bit and editing a little bit. I mean, that sounds like a recipe for just a never-ending nightmare right there, right? So, I've kind of heard something similar from everyone I've had on this podcast who is really good at writing books, is just to have like these stages and to be kind of like scientific and measurement-minded about it, if that's a term, but like being more about, well, what's my status and where am I at in the process, as opposed to just being all this chaos. And so I like your thought process here. Number one, of keeping it simple, but also of kind of mind mapping it out, so that way we can group things and rearrange things easily. And it seems like it's a lot easier to go from that kind of dump method, right? To just dump it all out and then rearrange and then see how it comes together, as opposed to just going from that blank page and trying to wing it.
Oh, 100%. And at least I found it, because I'm a visual type of person. So I found that for me personally, when I am able to see it on the page and start to mind map, which that's the piece, honestly, if folks listening, if they just do that, like that's why I really challenge people, is as soon as you get done listening to this podcast, spend 15 minutes on your mind map. We have a post on our blog on how to write a book. We can link it up in the show notes, where it actually, like, if you're visual like me, it actually walks you through the process. And I'm pretty sure we have a mind map template on there. But I would highly recommend, no matter what, take 15 minutes at the end of this podcast and work on that, because most people are surprised when they do. And it starts to make it a real thing. Because I don't know about you, Robert, but I felt this way when I wrote my first book, and I know I've talked to a lot of folks who felt the same way, which is, you think, oh, I know a lot about this topic, but maybe I could write 5 or 10 pages on it, right? But once you go through the mind map process, at least this is what happens for me, and it's happened for a ton of our students, is you start to realize that you know more about this topic than you think. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So that's what I've found really helps people, is they say, oh, wow, no, I can do this. I've got a lot of other content I can cover.
Yeah. I've definitely come across that again and again, of like, in my head, it's one way, and I think like, oh, there's not much there. But once I kind of figure out what those subtopics are, it unlocks a lot of more things that can fit in there. So one thing that I'm curious about, as far, I guess before I even get to my other question, so just to get everyone caught up on this whole mind mapping thing, my understanding of this is, it's like the boring way is to make a list, right? You can make bullet points, but a better way is to take that piece of paper and then draw a circle and write a keyword or an idea, and then draw lines connecting to other circles. So that way it kind of uses your imagination a little bit, uses your kind of like your visualization. As you said, Chandler, you're a visual person. And so you can kind of like have these things that branch out. And like, at least for me, like when I was in, I don't know, like 4th or 5th grade, they taught us this thing called brainstorming, which was kind of similar, right? You draw the circles, you draw lines to the other circles. And what's even cooler about this is that there are computer programs where we can draw these and just click and drag and drop and create sub branches. And so is there a favorite mind mapping tool that you use?
Yeah, so it's funny. This is actually one of our most popular blog posts on our site, is what's the best book writing software. So it's kind of similar to the mind mapping software question, but for me personally, I prefer actually not to use software for mind mapping. And the reason why is because I find that for me personally, I spend so much time trying to figure out how to work the dang software that I just lose all creativity. And there's just nothing like a good old fashioned pen and paper to just, okay, there's nothing to figure out here. I just let my mind go and I just write, right? So for me personally, for mind mapping, I just like using pen and paper. And then for the actual writing, so like the book writing software piece, I use Google Docs. That's my favorite. Now, sure, there's Scrivener, there's Microsoft Word, there's a ton of other tools that other folks tend to like. I just like to keep it simple and go with Google Docs, because it allows me to collaborate, edit, and work with others.
Yeah, and that's huge. Yeah, because like you said, like you can write the document, and other people can jump in, other people can leave comments, other people can edit. You can track the edits. You can write some on your phone, write some on your computer, or write some on the tablet, write some on the laptop. Kind of do that from anywhere. So that's two really great ways to keep it simple, to mind map on pen and paper. That way you can go hang out by the fireplace, go to the park, go hang out on your back porch or something, and not have to be staring at a computer screen or making sure your battery's charged or that you're on Wi-Fi. Just have the pen and paper and then write the thing in Google Docs, so that way it comes together really simply. And so one thing that I'm curious about now is that, so when people are to, dump their information, and then that becomes the chapters, and you unpack that chapter, you dump the information. How do we make sure that the book that we're creating is going to be a popular one, is touching on the subjects that people want to buy and read about? How do we make sure that this passion project book we have is actually commercially viable? Yeah,
so obviously, I mean, the market is going to decide. One of the key pieces of advice I give folks is it's easier to sell pain pills than it is to sell vitamins. And what I mean by that is is your book solving a real problem in the market that people care about? And it's not a vitamin solution. So if you think about vitamins, you go to the supermarket, they're in all shapes, sizes, gummies, chewables, you name it. Whereas pain pills is just like Tylenol or generic ibuprofen. right? They don't need to package pain medicine because not many people wake up in the morning and say, I can't wait to have my vitamins. But a lot of people wake up every morning, they're in pain and they reach for some pain medicine, right? So when you're thinking about your book topic, how do you make sure that it solves a real pain for a specific group of people? And don't worry if that's a small group of people. In fact, if that is a small and niche group of people, that's actually better. As they say, the riches are in the niches, right? So if you're able to focus in on a small group of people and solve a very specific pain or pain point or problem for those folks, then it's going to be commercially viable. If you're trying to sell a vitamin solution for a super broad and huge market, then it's probably not going to work out.
I love it. That's a great metaphor, great analogy there, right? So we want to solve that real problem, so that way we're selling the pain pills, not the vitamins. Mm-hmm. And even if we're drilling down super niche specific, that's okay because we can have a lot of short books for this sort of stuff, right?
100%.
Cool. And then so something else that I'm sort of jealous of some of these people who have, hundreds of Kindle books. I don't know what your kind of publishing strategy is, but I'm kind of more of a business card book sort of guy.
For sure.
I think I have like 11 books out there that kind of just like promote my different courses and things like that. But I'm sure you've seen some of these people who have these like Kindle publishing empires, right? They'll have a book on how to stop nail biting, a book on how to stop gambling. So, I mean, have you seen these or have you done these or do you have any opinion on like having just a crap load of Kindle books?
Yeah, I've definitely seen it. And there's a lot of people that kind of popularized that method. For me personally, I'm way more a quality over quantity kind of guy. So, I mean, I think that used to work, publishing a bajillion crappy ebooks and then making a lot of money. It was actually a really good strategy back in the day because the market was not sophisticated. But in my opinion, just long term, it doesn't work. So I'd rather have one or two books, or I guess a few. As long as they're good, right? So for me, it's definitely quality over quantity, and that's kind of my approach.
All right, fair enough. So we look at what pain there is to be solved. We dump our knowledge on how to solve that problem and rearrange and mind map on pencil and paper, and then use Google Docs to type it up. And so, what sort of ways do you have of getting people from the book to other places? Because like I used to only put a link at the beginning and the end, but then something that was just really simple that blew me away was I've seen more and more books now where at the end of every chapter, they say something like, well, all the stuff that we told you about in chapter 3, here's a video on it. Just go to this opt-in page and sign up. And I noticed that like usually every page like that at the end of every chapter is almost identical and it's sent to the same exact opt-in page. So it's like reminding them every chapter, like, you read about this, how about some videos on it? I thought that was like, it just blew me away how simple that was. So do you have any favorite ways of getting people off that Kindle book and onto some websites?
Yeah, 100%. So my favorite is giving video or audio away for free. So I actually, in most of my books, give the audio book away for free at the beginning of the book. So actually, if you go to my book published or book launch on Amazon, you can click the look inside feature and you can actually get the audio book for free without even buying the book. Now, some people think Chandler's an idiot. He doesn't know this. Of course I know that, right? But for me personally, that lead is worth way more than the $3 or $4 that I would get if they would have purchased the book. So that's how we kind of funnel just thousands of leads a month off of Amazon and into our ecosystem. And then also I do what you were mentioning, which is 4 to 7 times throughout the book, we'll have additional calls to action.
Fantastic. And all this stuff just reminds me of what's the Eben Pagan, the moving the free line. Like we used to think that, well, we have to make money on the book, but it's like, if we have something even juicier, like a course or a coaching program, why not give that book away for free? Yep. That way we can think more big picture and get more reach like that. And sort of along those lines of kind of getting more reach. And like you mentioned of, giving away your book for free. I'm curious about this free plus shipping thing, because I remember like back when there was like the free CD thing and that went away, and then like Russell Brunson brought back the free plus shipping thing, and I wasn't really that impressed with it, especially like when he did it. But then I've been seeing it more and more. Like it seems like it's even making an even more recent comeback. And I there was like some like coach for dentists or something, and I opted in for her free book, and I was really blown away by, first of all, she mailed the free book out like 2 hours after I bought it. Here I was expecting to fill out this form, put in my credit card, pay like the $7, and I figured, okay, I'll get the book in like a month. But it was like literally 2 hours later, already on the way. And then I got sent to like 2, maybe 3 upsells and registered for a webinar, and I was just brought through that whole funnel. And then I was kind of like, okay, now I get it. Like it's not just it's not just give them the free book, get them on a list. It's like give them these upsells, give them these other things, and be really quick and have that really great kind of initial experience. So in these last few minutes that we're talking here, can you kind of just tell us about this free plus shipping thing and kind of what your experience has been with it and kind of what you do to make it unique to you?
Oh yeah, so it's one of the most profitable funnels that we're running right now, and I think for exactly the reason that you just explained, Robert. So I mean, you're talking about going through the process and how much. I mean, like you're obviously impressed by that, and that's a meaningful thing that we're talking about even right here on this podcast. Whereas you've probably opted in for a bunch of other webinars, and we're not talking about those, right? So the thing I love about it is that you get customers. Like, just imagine if the majority of the folks on your list have already paid you money versus they just opted in for a webinar, right? I always say where money goes, attention flows, right? So when I pay money for something, even if it's just $8 for the shipping and handling, now all of a sudden, when you tell me about a webinar, I'm paying attention. When you ship me the book, now I've got it. Now I'm reading the book. It's just starting this much deeper customer relationship, because you're actually sending them something that they have in their house versus just you're sending them emails into an inbox that they probably don't read, right? So this is a very different perspective and the context with which people are coming into your world. And then obviously, since they've paid money, now they're going to pay more attention to your emails and they'll be more likely to do business with you down the road.
Super awesome. So is there a free plus shipping page of your own, like is published a free plus shipping book? Yeah, there is. So if you go into selfpublishingschool.com, you'll see there should be a place there where you can just click it. And so it's set up on ClickFunnels for us, and that's how we do it. But yeah, we move probably 10, 20, 30 copies a day of that book just through our free plus shipping, which in my mind, that's 10 to 30 soldiers that are going out into battle to spread the good news about writing and publishing a book, right? So we're helping a ton of people. And it's sending out to where, now all of a sudden, Robert, if you get this copy of this book, it's in your house, and then someone randomly comes over to your house and is talking about writing a book. You're like, oh yeah, there's this Chandler guy. I've got his book. Why don't you take it? Like, so there's just virality, and then it just it's people who are going out and getting us more leads, or not people. It's a book which is used by people, which is going out to get the business more leads and more customers. Yeah, fantastic. I mean, there's so many good things to say about this technique. That number one, like that people will now have this book maybe on their bookshelf, but either way, they're gonna think twice about throwing it away, because it feels bad to throw away a book. And also that whole aspect of, like you said, like where the money goes, the attention flows. The fact that even if we broke even on that transaction there, someone, like, first of all, they're internet savvy enough to enter their credit card details into a form, but they also trust us enough to pay us those credit card details. And then there's kind of that, I don't know what you'd call it, but that whole factor of, we're probably on all these email lists, and I would say maybe, we've bought from maybe 5% of those, and that 5% of those marketers, that if we paid even $1 to them, we're going to pay way more attention to their emails versus if we've been on someone's list for 5 years and never paid them a single penny. So there's all these kind of really awesome benefits to it. Plus, like you said a little bit in there, in that it might be sitting on their shelf, and then now that's extra virality to someone else doing the marketing for you. And it reminds me of like when Seth Godin did one of his book launches once. I think you could only order the book in a 10-pack, so you get 10 copies of his.
Interesting.
Yeah, it is. So you get 10 copies of his book, and it's like, well, I only need one now I'm going to have to give away these 9 other books. And I think he kind of priced it where he like broke even or lost a little bit of money because he'd rather have 10 copies of his book out there. And like we've been talking about, moving the free line and making money from other sources. So do you have anything kind of like interesting in your back pocket, or anything kind of like cutting edge or exciting that you're doing kind of to stand out in a similar way?
And along with the free plus shipping piece, or just in general?
Just in general, like anything book publishing that you think is cool that you're doing that not a lot of people are doing.
Yeah, I mean, I really do think that the free plus shipping is that thing. I mean, sure, there's the Russell Brunsons and Dean Graziosi and Ryan Levesque and those folks but that are doing it. But I mean, beyond that, it's not very popular. And I feel like we just do it really, really well. And also we're leading to booking calls. So that's something that's different. So we have a full team that can take calls, that can help people with their book and enroll people in self-publishing school that way. So I feel like that's something that's kind of different. Everyone wants to just automate everything. And so we're going more towards that direction. I feel like that's different. And it also helps us just be way more profitable in the funnels that we're running traffic to.
Super cool. Yeah. Going that extra mile and having that basically inbound call center to help people answer their questions, get them where they need to go. Yeah. So super cool. So if people are saying, man, this Chandler guy, he's super smart. I want to get his book. I want to learn about all these cool techniques like the mind mapping and the free plus shipping offer. Is there a central location to find all about like your podcast and your books? Is that just selfpublishingschool.com?
Yeah, that's exactly it. So selfpublishingschool.com, or if you go to self-publishingschool.com/free, we've got some free training there. So that's a 45-minute webinar. Talks about 3 things. Number 1, how to get clear on your idea for your book. Number 2, how to get your book written. So it kind of goes deeper into the mind map process that I talked about. And then number 3, how to market and launch the book successfully. So that's self-publishingschool.com/free.
Sounds like a great starting point. It sounds like a great way for people to get that whole big picture and avoid the scenario we were talking about when we first got on this call, where, people, if they're not going through with any sort of plan, if they're not using a system, if they don't have that kind of outside support, that coaching help, if they don't know what it's all leading to, then they might just be kind of putting in some effort and pushing the car, but they don't know where the car is steering towards. So maybe they're filling in some pages, maybe they're getting to their book, but they have no idea if their book's going to sell, how quickly they'll get the book done, what the marketing plan is afterwards. So it really helps to get the guidance from someone who's done it before you again and again. So the place to do that is self-publishingschool.com/free to get those 3 things that Chandler just mentioned. Number 1, to get clear on your idea. Number 2, to get the book written. And number 3, to find out what you need to do to market the book once it's out there, because it's not just going to sell itself. You have to, run some of those ads that Chandler's talking about, or hop on podcasts like Chandler's on right now, or have those upsells, or do all these. And it's not like a ton, but a lot of the little touches to a lot of little details, so that way your book sells a bunch of copies, and that way your book actually fuels your business and isn't just a time suck like for some people out there. So make sure that you go to selfpublishingschool.com/published to get that book called Published: The Proven Path from Blank Page to Publish Author. And that free course is self-publishingschool.com/free. And when you go to selfpublishingschool.com in general, you can see all the amazing things that Chandler has going on, from how to do that mind mapping to the free plus shipping offer. And you'll have a lot of fun there. And it can't hurt to just get a little bit more information, to get a few more details about what it is that you're trying to do. So that way you can have more fun doing it, get it done faster, and have a lot more results with it. So anything to add here, Chandler, as we're wrapping things up?
No, that's great, Robert. Hey, thank you for having me.
Heck yeah, my pleasure. And we'll see you at selfpublishingschool.com. Thanks for listening to today's program. Start from the beginning or view past episodes at marketeroftheday.com/episodes.